markets are closed, but the business stories are just heating up. Hello, I'm Mai Rodriguez. Catch up with us on Business Brief. A fragile ceasefire is holding between Israel and Iran, but markets are still on edge and the stakes for oil and global trade remain high. On Tuesday, U.S. President Donald Trump accused both countries of violating the truce. But Iran and Israel insist they won't make the first move unless the other strikes first. That same day, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared victory in the war, a claim that could reignite tensions at any time.
אזרחי ישראל היקרים, ב-12 הימים של מבצע עם כלביא,
Dear citizens of Israel, during the 12 days of the Operation Rising Lion, we achieved a historic victory, and this victory will stand for generations. We removed from upon us two immediate existential threats: the threat of annihilation by nuclear bombs and the threat of annihilation by 20,000 ballistic missiles. If we had not acted now, the state of Israel would soon be facing the danger of annihilation. But that did not happen.
Iran's president also announced the end of the 12-day war. He calls on all government bodies and revolutionary institutions to focus on reconstruction efforts. Asian stocks stabilized Wednesday as a ceasefire between Israel and Iran lifts investor sentiment. This is despite hostilities threatening to flare up again. The fragile truce holds for now, even though Israel says it will respond forcefully to Iranian missile strikes that comes after U.S. President Donald Trump announced an end to the hostilities. Preliminary U.S. intelligence assessment, meanwhile, says the U.S. airstrikes did not destroy Iran's nuclear capability and only set it back by a few months. This contradicts Trump's earlier claims that Iran's nuclear program had been obliterated. A sea of green dominates the Asian equity markets, with Hong Kong's Hang Seng rising the most at nearly 1%. In the currency markets, the US dollar appreciates against the Japanese yen and South Korean won, while the Australian dollar rose against the greenback. But the US dollar fell against the Thai baht, and it's flat against the Hong Kong dollar and Singapore dollar. In commodities and crypto, gold prices rise by 0.3%. Meanwhile, oil markets are mixed, with West Texas Intermediate crude and Brent crude rising more than 1%, but Dubai crude drops by more than 1%. In the cryptocurrency space, Bitcoin is up by 0.5%, while Ethereum down less than 1%. Iranian authorities have arrested 700 people accused of being mercenaries of Israel. Iranian media reports the suspects were identified based on intelligence operations. Israel's spy agency Mossad has acknowledged the role of its undercover personnel working in Iran as part of Operation Rising Lion, the nickname of its airstrikes there. Other Iranian news outlets have reported multiple executions of suspected Israeli spies. The Israeli government has yet to issue a statement on the matter. Israel ends its state of emergency after the ceasefire with Iran, but the Philippines remains under Alert Level 3. Under Alert Level 3, repatriation is strongly recommended but remains voluntary. Embassy data show 340 Filipinos have asked to be sent home. Those already repatriated were around 126 students, pilgrims, and OFWs. 135 of our kababayans lost their homes to missile strikes. Most of them are now in temporary housing provided by the Migrant Workers Department. The DMW says 7 of those injured in the air raids have been discharged and 1 remains in critical condition. Over 400 others have received emergency aid. The Philippines urgently needs a strategic petroleum reserve to protect against global oil supply shocks. That's according to Camarines Sur 2nd District Representative El Rey Villafuerte. On Bilyonaryo News Channel's Business 360, Villafuerte said he is proposing a 90-day stockpile estimated to cost up to $4 billion. Should there be budget constraints, he said, the reserve could be built gradually over 3 to 5 years to buffer against geopolitical risks and price volatility. He also argued the reserve could be used even in peacetime.
When price of oil are high, we don't need to buy so much because we have a reserve. When price of oil has gone down or low, we buy to increase reserves. It will not only cushion impact on disruptions, it can be a strategy for lowering price of oil when prices are high.
He said Malacanang can immediately act through an executive order while Congress works on supporting legislation to fund and implement the plan. Villafuerte emphasized that there's no perfect time to start, but now.
If you're saying that the price of oil is very high now, it will take easily a year, 12 to 18 months to set up a reserve anyway. All we need is really the political will and the commitment to do this.
The lower stock transaction tax, or STT, will officially take effect on Tuesday. This comes after the publication of the Capital Markets Efficiency Promotion Act, or CMEPA, in the official gazette, or a newspaper of general circulation. Under the CMEPA, the sale of the listed shares will be reduced to 0.1% of the gross selling price from the current 0.6%. The STT is seen to help the market's development over time, as this lowers the so-called friction cost of stock trading, making investing more efficient and incentivized, which helps boost market value turnover. We're taking a short break. More business stories are up next. You're watching Business Brief. An instability abroad rattles global markets. Local insurers are faced with new challenges. Sujin Kim joins us on the line with the details. Sujin.
Yes, Mai, amid heightened geopolitical tensions in the Middle East and across other global flashpoints, concerns are rising not just within the banking and capital markets, but also across the Philippine insurance sector. Industry executives warn that global shocks such as the Israel-Iran conflict and prolonged commodity price volatility could significantly affect the capacity of insurers to manage risk, deliver returns on investments, and offer affordable protection to policyholders.
Of course, we're all concerned about the effects of geopolitical risks are always present in any business, including insurance companies. Now, I mean, we are primarily a financial institution, and of course, any geopolitical instability will, of course, affect our ability to offer better products, to maintain our position in the market.
As part of the broader financial system, insurance companies are exposed to both market uncertainty and an elevated risk of claims, particularly in scenarios involving natural disasters, public health crises, and economic instability. These events create additional pressure on solvency margins, policy pricing, and portfolio management. Despite this, insurance remains one of the least prioritized financial products in the Philippines. While insurance is designed to provide a financial buffer during times of loss, be it illness, job disruption, or environmental environmental catastrophe, many Filipino families still do not carry any form of insurance. With the country's penetration rate at just 1.68%, the Philippines lags well behind its regional peers in financial preparedness. To address this gap, insurers are investing in inclusive product development and education initiatives aimed at reshaping public perception. Firms like True Life UK are expanding their portfolio to include Sharia-compliant products such as Takaful, as well as community-based financial literacy programs targeting the youth. Their goal, to shift insurance from being a last resort to a first line of protection. And those are latest updates from Taguig City. Back to you, Mai.
Thank you for that report, Sujin Kim. Congressman-elect Leandro Legarda Leviste will raise over 34 billion pesos worth of shares in SP New Energy Corporation, or SPNEC, before assuming office on Monday. Leviste's wholly owned companies have agreed to sell more than 14 billion shares to Meralco Powergen Corporation, or MGen, for nearly 20 billion pesos. He also sold over 1.8 billion shares to public shareholders for more than 2 billion pesos. In total, he has sold 16.44 billion shares for 20.49 billion pesos. The rest of the 34 billion pesos comes from Meralco's additional investment of 15.9 billion pesos in new SPNEC shares, part of a capital raise to fund its solar projects. Leviste says divesting will allow him to focus fully on public service. Economic planners credit stronger Senate-House coordination as the 19th Congress passes 40 priority measures from the National Economic Agenda, the most number in 3 decades. 33 of these have been signed into law, including reforms on public-private partnerships, tax incentives, and capital markets. 7 more, covering e-governance, foreign land leasing, and mining taxes, are awaiting the president's signature. The Legislative Executive Development Advisory Council, or LEDAC, will push for land use and water resource bills in the next Congress. Filipino-Chinese business leaders support the DILG's call for an uncompromising nationwide security drive, saying safety concerns are undercutting our potential as a world-class destination. Federation President Victor Lim says the country's natural beauty is unmatched, but the perception of instability fueled by crime continue to scare off tourists. The Philippines drew nearly 6 million visitors last year, still lagging far behind Thailand, which welcomed 36 million, and Malaysia, which received 25 million tourists. The Federation is now backing calls for a full-blown security drive in key destinations, along with faster visas and better transport links to boost arrivals. It also stresses the need for urgent airport upgrades, warning that if infrastructure and safety don't improve, tourism growth will stall. What if the country's next economic crisis isn't a recession but a health issue? Obesity now costs the Philippine economy over 2 trillion pesos a year, hurting workforce productivity, inflating healthcare spending, and putting millions at risk. And unlike a pandemic, this one's been growing quietly for years. Sujin Kim returns with this report.
2 trillion pesos. That's the staggering cost obesity and its complications are draining from the Philippine economy, eroding healthcare funds, undercutting worker productivity, burdening businesses, and limiting the nation's ability to invest in other critical services. Obesity has become an economic weight, straining public insurance systems and weakening industries such as BPO, manufacturing, and office-based jobs.
Just imagine 2 trillion pesos. How much vitamins you can give, how many hospitals you can support, the lesser burden for the local government to provide funds for the medicines.
The cost isn't limited to hospital bills. Billions are spent on dialysis, kidney transplants, and angioplasty, life-saving procedures, PhilHealth covers due to obesity-related diseases. Hemodialysis alone costs PhilHealth over 28 billion pesos every year. Kidney transplants and angioplasty add hundreds of thousands of pesos per case to the burden on public funds. Businesses suffer too. Obesity-related sick leaves and hospitalizations cut into output.
If you're obese, all these illnesses, you cannot, if you're a little bit stressed, tataas na agad yung BP mo. Itataas na agad yung sugar mo. So anong tendency mo pag nalang ko pumasok? So that's productivity loss, right?
Every day of absence erodes productivity and hurts the economy, with costs rising. Experts stress that the solution lies not only in treatment, but in strong preventive and promotive healthcare programs that must be supported by both the government and the private sector.
Whole of government, whole of system, and whole of society approach is very important. The government cannot, and the government won't be able to solve everything, but it really needs and it really asks for private involvement and participation.
Data show obesity is a burden shared by all. Under PhilHealth's cross-subsidization system, healthy members shoulder part of the costs of those who are ill.
Because we function under the principles of bayanihan, wherein the healthy subsidizes the sick, the rich subsidizes the poor, and the young subsidizes the adults. So at any point in time, there is always a cross-subsidization between members from the direct and the indirect.
The EPICOB PH study, the country's first in-depth analysis of the economic burden of obesity, aims to build a model for smarter health budgeting, corporate wellness investments, and national policy reforms. Soojin Kim, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
We're taking a short break. More business stories are up next. You're watching Business Brief. A cargo ship that was bound for Mexico sank in the North Pacific Ocean. The 22 crew members abandoned ship weeks ago when they failed to put out the fire on board. The Morning Midas, which came from China, sank on Monday in international waters off Alaska. The U.S. Coast Guard said there is no visible pollution so far. 2 salvage tugboats containing pollution control equipment will remain in the area for any signs of oil spill. Philippine shares rise for the second straight day after falling nearly 2% last Monday. The PSE index ended higher by 0.5% to close at 63.25, finishing the day as the 7th best performer in Asia. Majority of the sectoral indices ended in the green, with property rising the most at almost 2%. Advancers outpaced decliners 97 to 83. Total value turnover reached 4.7 billion pesos. More than half of the day's most active stocks ended in the green, with Ayala Land rising the most at nearly 3%. Meanwhile, the foreign exchange market, the peso, is currently trading at 56.71 against the greenback, appreciating from the previous close of 57.60. And that's a wrap for today's Business Brief. I'm Mai Rodriguez. Join us again next week as we bring you the stories that help you plan your next big, bold moves in business. Only here on the Bilyonaryo News Channel. See you then.